Charlie Kirk is often made to defend Israel at his TPUSA events, and it happened again, but his response was perfect.
I have a disagreement about the whole Palestine-Israel thing. I promise not to take up as much time as the last person who was up here, but I'd like to open with maybe like a little statement, which is that, you know, I'm not too partial to either particular side of the political spectrum, but I think that a sad reality is when we talk about the Palestine issue, it's the Gaza Strip is 50% people under the age of 15. It's about 2 million people and about 5 to 25 square miles. And the reality of it is that Israel has said they're going to make a complete siege of the area. They've cut off electricity, they've cut off water, and that's kind of a sad reality. And the reality is they also can't leave. There's only 2 ports of entry and exit. And so as much as you or others might be pro-Israel, how do we not condemn the Israelis for taking away resources like water from a population that's the majority children? And at what point do we say that it's kind of an open genocide, right? Like when Israel, well, I mean, I know it's easy to...
You realize on Saturday they killed 900 Jews, right?
I understand. I understand.
One side's doing the genocide, the other side is retaliating.
To clarify, this is right after October 7th. Think about this. After October 7th, he's calling what Israel did a genocide. Insanity.
One side's definitely swinging up and one side's swinging down, and I think that when you're a strip of land in which all of your water, airways, and electricity is controlled by a state, which you can't leave, and it gets bombed by missiles, I don't really think it's quite equivocal. I mean, obviously everyone here can condemn killing civilians, and that's not a debate that I'm going to have with anybody, left or right.
Sure.
But at what point or time, you know, you say you criticize Republicans, but why don't we ever criticize Israel for what they're doing by turning off water? I mean, how? Well,
I'm not going to criticize. Again, let me just ask a hypothetical. Please. If Cuba came to Miami and killed 50,000 Americans, should we cut off their water? Answer the question.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, I disagree.
You think we should cut off water to people?
If the Cuban government came and killed 50,000 Americans, which is the population equivalent, right? Sure. So 900 Jews would be 50,000 Americans.
Yeah.
I would completely support war against a country that kills 50,000 Americans. Cuba is the same, about similar distance, right? So yes, I would restrict food, water. It would be all-out war against a country that touched our homeland.
Well, you know what they call all-out war against a populace of people that are stuck in an area? It's a genocide, right? And so as much as I agree...
No, hold on a second. No. First of all, if that was the case, why is Israel telling civilians to leave a certain area, number one?
Well, only that are allowed to leave,
hold on a second.
Right?
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. What?
Like, are Palestinians allowed to leave the Gaza Strip?
Well, they're moving to a different location of the Gaza Strip before bombardments happen. That's number one. Number two, they're already talking about humanitarian corridors being built. Did you know that? They're talking about humanitarian corridors being built with Egypt. So there's already a plan from both the Mediterranean side and the south side. But honestly, I'm not going to overly specify this because war is a really brutal, nasty thing. And you could say whatever you want about Israel. We're not going to agree on it, right?
Sure.
Israel did not invite this war.
No, I don't think so either.
Right, but they have to retaliate, and war is the worst thing humans do. Here's my prayer, that Israel doesn't overreact. Americans don't send troops, and that this is short, and that the terrorists that did this are held to justice. That's what we need to publicly say. But I am not, and you're right. There are kids that are going to die. That pains me. The heaviness should be on you. But the answer is you just kind of roll over and allow people to come into your country, into kibbutzes, into concerts, and mowing down people and say, you know, catch you next time?
I'm just not entirely sure what water has to do with the conflict, Mr. Kirk. I just don't see how the Israelis, the Palestinians, the PLO, and Hamas
honestly,
can use water.
Two things. Here's the issue. The Palestinian Authority is too busy spending $300 million a year incentivizing the slaying of Jews instead of actually going and purchasing water filtration services, you know, all sorts of different things there. Number two, so they build their headquarters under hospitals. It's a fact. They use the entire population of women and children in Gaza as a massive 2.5 million person human shield. That's sick. There are no good solutions here. There's not one that I'm going to say this is wonderful and beautiful and glamorous and this is excellent. It's all crummy. It's all hell. And they invited hell. And something that we like to gloss over as Westerners is we get to live in a very peaceful society, relatively, and we don't realize that sometimes you need a Dresden. And that's a really hard thing to swallow. But guess what? What we did in World War II to defeat the Nazis was 100% morally defensible. And there were people that also died. Israel has a right to defend themselves, and they're going to retaliate. And Hamas, they brought this upon themselves. They were the stewards of those women and children. And as stewards of those women and children, they said, we don't care about the women and children enough that we're going to go into the other. They knew what was. You're trying to tell me that they're shocked that they're getting bombarded and their water's cut off and their electricity is cut? No, they invited it. Final thought.
Sure. I wouldn't necessarily say they, but I do understand the sentiment, right?
Okay.
I do agree that Hamas brings it upon
But
themselves.
I think we can agree. Here's what I will say. I do not think U.S. troops outside of very specific special forces to rescue Americans, which I'm sure you might be able to agree with, should be involved in this conflict.
Yeah.
We cannot allow ourselves to get into another Middle Eastern quagmire that Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley and Mike Pence might try to get us into. That is something we can agree with, okay?
All right, I'm not sure I agree with all of what he said, but he is definitely right in his sentiment that Israel is fighting a war, and wars are hell, and that's the reality of war. With regard to the water, they literally use water pipes to make rockets. There are videos of them taking water pipes and making them into rockets. I'll even show one right now. Let me actually show one right now. Give me a second. I'm just gonna pull it up. Here, right here. As you can see, the Palestinians, this is a propaganda video of Palestinian Hamas fighters using the water tunnels, the water pipes that go into Gaza as rockets. Check it.
يا قاتلا ما كان قمحي فانيا هيهات يهزم في بنادقنا اليقين جئنا لكم من أرضنا وسمائنا من لج بحر صادحين مكبرين الله أكبر الله أكبر كبروا الله أكبر.
So as you can see, they dig up the water pipes, they use them as rockets, and then they blame Israel that they don't have water. And then the world blames Israel that they don't have water. Insanity. Total insanity. That alone, that video, that showcases how crazy it is to blame Israel for this conflict. Digging up the water pipes that help your people have water in order to send rockets towards Israel. And these rockets aren't even going to land. They're just going to make Israel spend money through the Iron Dome. Just insanity. For more, subscribe to this channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. Thank you and have a good one.